and I are sitting in a room full of normal people. I know that because they have all been married and have children, and I know that because that is my definition of normal. It doesn't matter what unhappy secrets their lives contain. That is totally beside the point and doesn't apply or make a dent in my abnormalness. Once in their life, they got married to a man they loved and thought that they would share the rest of their lives with, and then took a giant leap and had children. Yes, I hear you say, but June and you have also been married. Oh, please, I say. I have had intense bouts of lust, overwhelming, leaving me stuttering and weak, but I'm married because, you know, just because I couldn't see any way out of it. I was looking for an excuse to get divorced before I got married. I approached marriage with the coolness of a French resistance fighter kneeling in front of a line of German soldiers. No, merci, no need for a bullet. Blindfold. I want to see the bullet speed toward me. It was the 50s. Marriage conferred adult status for a woman. No, nothing else counted.
Here's how I got married. My friend Millie had just gotten married and moved out of her family home. And I moved in to fill the empty slot in the household. But I stayed out overnight with my boyfriend Saul. And Millie's mother said if I was going to behave like that, I would have to leave. My boyfriend said I could move in with him and his 2 roommates. He later said he didn't think I would take him up on this offer. Now, this was the early 60s, but the 60s didn't really get going until much later. For all practical purposes, this was the 50s. And this kind of living arrangement was very scandalous and shocking to people like parents and employers. Hiding it involved a lot of inconveniences, like a separate phone line and watching what I said, which was not natural to me. The time came when the lease was up and the roommates were scattering, and it had been 2 years, and I was thinking, well, maybe this is going to last, and it would sure make life a lot easier. So we thought maybe we would go to City Hall and get married. Then I had a brilliant idea. I thought, whoever asks to see your marriage license? Why couldn't we just go to City Hall and come back and say we had gotten married? Then Joyce, my best friend from high school, who lived in North Carolina, wrote and said she was coming to Chicago to see me get married. She wanted to share my big day. I was very touched, and it was difficult to explain that I was planning to fake it. So I got married.
One afternoon, my husband Paul said to me, I like you very much, but I would like to have an affair. And in my head I heard him add, I want to have an affair because I am teaching at Radcliffe College, and I have an accent. And even though it is Hungarian, which is not a good accent, like a French accent, yet the young girls, they wish to rip off my clothes. Then he does ask, because it's true he likes me, would it be all right with you if I had an affair? I said, and I believe I did say this, although it's such a perfect retort that I can't imagine that my 21-year-old self had the stones to say it. Paul, there's not enough in this marriage for one person, let alone two. And then I phoned a therapist because I had scared myself quite a bit. Because I knew the consequences that would follow naturally from mending a marriage in the early 60s.
I gradually realized that the roommates had actually been an important part of the mix. And the two of us, by ourselves, did not really have that much in common. I was a much more social person than he was. It seemed to me that my idea of home was a treehouse, and his was a cave. He just wanted a quiet life, and I just didn't. And we had been in the apartment for a couple of years, and the lease was up.
The only grounds for divorce in Massachusetts at that time was adultery or physical cruelty. Annoyingly enough, my husband refused to consider either. He felt that his career as a sociology professor would be ruined by either accusation. Meanwhile, everyone we knew was taking the stand and lying with gusto, testifying that her dear friend had been cheated on or shoved roughly during an argument. Since I was a citizen and was in charge of the checkbook, not because I could add or subtract, but because Paul refused to enter checks, I was deemed equipped to find a way for us to divorce without injuring his reputation. My reputation was, of course, of no consequence. I was already showing a distinct inclination to be an artist, and no one cares about us. I contacted a lawyer from the Yellow Pages. His office was full of hopeless Hispanics looking for citizenship. He ushered me into his office ahead of the others. "Tell me," he said, "has your husband requested any perverted forms of sexual activity?" Oh my, I was not yet a humor writer and could not appreciate how this exchange could be turned into a career. I was shocked, said no, and abruptly ran from the room. The only option that remained was a Mexican divorce. The Mexican divorce would be arranged by a New York lawyer. New York also had very difficult divorce laws. Since my husband was not a citizen, I had to go to Mexico and get the divorce. Friends insisted that I bring back enchiladas. Which I did. They were cold. Too bad.
We were supposed to move. My husband signed a lease on a new apartment. How was I going to get myself out of this? I didn't know how to tell him. I didn't know what to tell him. Get more roommates? The move got closer. Finally, I just said, "I'm staying here." And I signed a lease on the apartment I was in. As far as I was concerned, problem solved. But Saul took the longer view. I was wife number 2, and before too long, he had found a candidate for number 3. He called me. "You're going to be served some papers. Your job is not to respond." I did my job. And I was divorced for desertion. While it was not exactly a feather in my cap, I thought there was a certain distinction in it.
divorced along with a very attractive musician from New York who invited me to lunch. And I thought my life was going to be chock full of such offers, even though the lack of such offers was what frightened me when I thought of divorce. It turned out my pessimism was justified. One of the consequences of being divorced was that I had to start dating again, which meant chatting with strange men and hoping they would want to date me. I felt that meeting and chatting, the idea of being chosen, was demeaning and at the same time a requirement of being a girl.
The first guy I went out with after Saul and I split was visiting from California. He wanted to chat and get to know me. I just wanted to get laid. I didn't care if we got to know each other. I didn't even care if I enjoyed it. I just wanted to get past the first time with somebody else after the split. That turned out to be the wrong focus. Instead of getting me over that hurdle, he had an asthma attack. It turned out he was married and had a surge of guilt instead of passion.
June should have anticipated that the outcome of her first foray into sex after divorce would be humbling. But we are always hopeful, just as my friends were when they asked me to bring them some enchiladas from Mexico. Of course they were a bit cold.